What I'm about to say will contain no spoilers. Spider-Man Brand New Day is Spider-Man at his most human. It's also the most comic booky adaptation of Spider-Man to date, perfectly replicating that feeling of picking up a random Spider-Man comic and just reading that arc. And I should know, I've picked up and read a lot of them. The web swinging has never looked this fast or dangerous before, and the fights have never been better. They're kinetic and inventive, literally designed to replicate the dynamism of his video game counterpart. On that big scale, the action set pieces, the last minute rescues, the danger, the film absolutely delivers. This is the director of Shang-Chi after all. But it's at its best on the small scale. The small glances, the moments of reflection, the heartbreak. That is where the film shines. This is the director of Short Term 12 after all. The tapestry is the wider Marvel universe, and the film takes full advantage of that, but this is a story about Peter Parker, and about his relationship with Spider-Man and that world around him. It's personal, it's inspiring. There's not been a Spider-Man film like it, while it also absolutely continues the journey that the Home Trilogy put Spider-Man on. And if this is what you needed to go out and go and see it, go now and come back. Because we're going to look deeper into the themes and the story of Brand New Day. And naturally, that involves spoilers. I think, broadly, that people focus on the wrong aspect of the Spider-Man Home Trilogy in two main ways. The first, any mention of Peter Parker being Iron Man Jr. feels like it comes from a film being imagined rather than the films we got. Like, sure, Tony Stark is featured in Spider-Man Homecoming. If Sony are taking all the record-breaking box offices, then Marvel needs something to sweeten their end of the deal, and that's also why we have Nick Fury and Doctor Strange. But Iron Man is there as the antithesis of Spider-Man. He's the theme writ large, a foil for Spider-Man to overcome rather than to emulate. Spider-Man Homecoming is, thematically, about the importance of being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Peter goes from desperately wanting to be an Avenger at the beginning to turning that very opportunity down at the movie's end. He sees in the Vulture all the ways that the Avengers, and specifically Tony Stark, have failed the little guy. While they're out thwarting intergalactic threats or robotic invasions of their own making, the big potato stuff, they're neglecting the people on the ground. Some of those people are growing bitter and angry in the shadow of Iron Man. In the final confrontation of Homecoming, Spider-Man empathizes with the villain and saves his life. And then he turns down a new suit and a spot on the Avengers, choosing instead to be a smaller hero, a friendly neighborhood hero, to focus on the small potato stuff. And look, yes, he then gets that suit thrust upon him anyway as he flies off into space, but no one can control when a genocidal purple alien is going to mess up your character arc. That stuff just happens. To dismiss this version of the character as Iron Man Jr. is to miss how well Spider-Man Homecoming tells a very specific and personal story about a Spider-Man who hasn't quite figured it all out yet. A story of who Spider-Man is within a wider Marvel universe. This is something that the Home Trilogy is very good at. Specifically what screenwriters Chris McKenna and Eric Summers are good at. Spider-Man Far From Home, the next in the trilogy and the first with them with solo writing credits, could easily not feel like a Spider-Man movie. It's mostly based outside of New York, the villain motivations are tied, in part, to Tony Stark, and a central plot device involves weaponized satellites. On the surface, it doesn't feel very Spider-Man at all, but the core character journey is. This is a Spider-Man in mourning. This is a Spider-Man who has decided, even just for a couple of weeks, that he doesn't want to be Spider-Man anymore. Just like he did in Amazing Spider-Man issue 18, and Amazing Spider-Man issue 50, and Amazing Spider-Man issue 100, and like dozens of other times. It's what Peter Parker does. I think it's one of his superpowers. The European setting works to strip the Spider-Man away from him. He has every reason to quit. He's on holiday. And the glasses work as a MacGuffin, sure, but they're also a symbol of his loss and a new source of power for him. Power that he fails to be responsible with. And that's also Spider-Man's whole deal. So even though we're in Venice or Prague or London, this is still Peter Parker, coping with grief, struggling to find the time to tell a girl that he loves her, and doubting his instincts about whether he should even be a superhero. It is, at its core, very much about Peter Parker. And I mention both of these films because I said up top that Spider-Man Brand New Day is the most human the series has ever been, and I want to be clear that this isn't because Tom Holland's films have never been human. That's what they are, that's their strength. Brand New Day can run and swing really fast because those films walked before it. Even Spider-Man No Way Home, which could have easily rested on the nostalgia and the fan service, is explicitly about Peter Parker, about power and responsibility, and about what makes this version of Spider-Man different. Take the same script and use a new cast for the villains and the other Peters, and the story still works. The villains still work as ghosts of crime-fighting future, spectres of the damaged people that could die at his hands. The other Spider-Men still work as reflections of who Spider-Man can be, the damaged and the settled. It's better that they're the original actors. The film gets to be a celebration of the franchise and an epilogue for characters that could use an epilogue. But the core works without them, because it's about Peter and his relationship to Spider-Man, and people just aren't focusing on that. The theme of Spider-Man No Way Home, the heart of the story, is about the responsibility Spider-Man has to help those who need it, to take action when that action might cost him. Like Iron Man before him, Doctor Strange acts as antithesis to Peter. It's the fate of the villains to die, he says, and he would sacrifice them for the safety of his universe. And then, in doing the right thing, Spider-Man loses someone close to him. He gets his Uncle Ben moment, but with Aunt May instead. And instead of focusing on what this version of the scene was trying to do, people instead focused on how they got the scene wrong. In the comics, Peter Parker gets his spider powers, lets a thief run past him when he could have easily stopped them, and his Uncle Ben dies as a result. With the great new spider powers must also come the responsibility to use those powers to stop petty thieves. When Raimi adapted this scene, it looked the same. A thief ran past him, his Uncle Ben died. When Webb adapted this scene, it looked mostly the same. The thief ran past him in a shop this time, but he still let him go, and his Uncle Ben still died. It's very easy to look at the surface of the scene in No Way Home and see that it's the wrong shape. Spider-Man was trying to help those people. He was trying to do the right thing, and his Aunt May died anyway. What kind of moral is that? But I think this scene is the closest to the original intention. I have a whole video on why I think the first two films get the origin story wrong, so I won't spend too long on this, but the core of the comic origin is that Spider-Man doesn't choose to let the thief go, he just doesn't care. The comic origin is about the importance of action over inaction, doing something instead of nothing. When it was adapted by Raimi and Webb, Peter gets screwed over by someone and chooses to let the thief run past him. He chooses revenge. And so when the cost of that is his Uncle Ben dying, the moral changes slightly. It becomes simplified. It becomes revenge is bad. In No Way Home, it is in her dying moments that Aunt May gets to say the famous line, "With great power there must also come great responsibility." And she says it to a Peter Parker who is regretting taking action. He tried to help these villains and they turned against him, and he's questioning why he even tried to help them in the first place. May's delivery of the line is an admonishment of sorts. Her message to him is that even though it might cost him, even though people might not be grateful for his help, his great power means he has the responsibility to help people, to take action. The plot is different and the circumstances are different, but the message is the same. Because as her gravestone literally sets in stone, when you help someone, you help everyone. And that's why Peter Parker got shot at the end of Brand New Day. I'm taking the time to reiterate what I think the themes of the earlier Spider-Man films are because 1, I think they're great, but 2, I think that they're important when discussing Brand New Day, and I want us to be on the same page. Because Brand New Day is a thematic sequel to No Way Home. The Peter Parker we meet in Brand New Day is a Peter Parker that is carrying the words of his aunt with him, literally stuck to the wall in his apartment and living at the deepest core of his mind. This is a Spider-Man that is taking action, stopping a cavalcade of villains in a montage very early on, even if it costs him the people that he loves. And that's important, we'll get back to that. This is a Spider-Man who's on the streets, who is finally being who he wanted to be all those films ago. He's the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And he's a hero that cares about helping. Yelena puts it succinctly. Spider-Man's area is the small potato stuff. There's an unanswered question in the film. Most people can't see Jean Grey when she's in somebody else's body. Spider-Man can. We never find out why, but we do learn that as he becomes more spider-like, he loses this ability. I think it's because Spider-Man sees the humanity in people like no one else does. The Punisher, like Strange and Stark before him, works as a counter to Peter, in more ways than one. In this example, he sees Jean as a problem to solve with a bullet in the head. The revealed villain, Bill Metzger, sees the power within Jean. He uses language to imply that he cares about her as a person, but it's hollow words. And when he talks about Sarah, it's clear that he values what she did rather than who she was. To him, Jean is a vessel for her power that Bill wants access to. Spider-Man sees Jean, eventually, as Jean, the angry, grieving young woman. The final confrontation isn't a big fight. Like him rescuing Vulture in Homecoming, like him curing all the villains in No Way Home, Brand New Day has him stand with a villain and simply understand her. He sees the hurt and the anger that she feels because he felt that same hurt and anger when he lost his Aunt May. And when he sees himself reflected back in Jean, he invites her into his mind so that she too can feel the love and the message of understanding that has driven him to be who he is. By helping one person, he is helping everyone. This film is all about Aunt May's lesson to him in No Way Home, and it comes with another lesson, hidden in his memories, another aspect of the Peter Parker and Spider-Man relationship that he needs to understand. When the composer Michael Giacchino came to write the music for Spider-Man Brand New Day, he was originally going to write a whole new theme. This was a new chapter in Spidey's life, after all. Instead, what he did was he took the previous theme and simply stripped out some of the notes. This became this. It signifies, musically, that this is a Peter Parker who is missing something. At the end of the last trilogy, he made the world forget who he was. Then, thinking that he'd be putting them in danger, he chose not to tell his friend or his girlfriend. And so now, he lives a lonely life, saving people and caring about people, but doing so alone, without connections, for their safety. After all, he has a great responsibility. Jean DeWolf calls this out early in the film, tells him the danger of letting yourself be defined only by the work that you do, and it's a central theme of the movie, the balance between Spider-Man and Peter Parker. And it starts with the Spider-Man side winning. The theme is made manifest with a transformation, as he finds himself rejected from the human world, getting a brief interaction with Ned and MJ and seeing how happy they are without him. He begins to transform into something more spider-like. It's Spider-Man without the humanity. A Spider-Man that will endanger others in fits of anger. It's a Spider-Man that can't see Jean anymore. And Peter tries to control this side of him. He wants to have it all. He can keep people safe and keep his humanity. He just needs this little chip that will change who he is on a DNA level. That's a workable solution, right? We have Hulk in the film as a representation of that duality of character. Bruce is always fighting against that monster within, who's one bad day away from re-emerging. We have Punisher in the film as the opposite. He's not fighting a monster within, he's let it win. That's all he is. Peter doesn't see that. He sees somebody who has found some version of peace without human connection, and he thinks that he too can have what Frank has. But that's not freedom. That's not a lifestyle, it's a sentence. Frank even says so. And Jean Grey spells out the conflict to Peter. Her sister was special, just like Peter, just like Jean. People like them don't get to live a normal life. They don't get to have friends or a family. Those people are gone. That life is over. So why doesn't he just be honest with himself? Is he Peter Parker or is he Spider-Man? That's the central question that the film asks. The answer is reached by forcing Peter to interact with people, to confront the friends that he left behind and, in one case, stand there and explain his actions. For the first time in years, he sits down with two friends and just exists. He builds Lego, he quotes Lord of the Rings. He takes a moment to care for himself. You know, the small potato stuff, but for him this time. Because what gets lost in great power and great responsibility is that some of that responsibility is to yourself. Because, as Aunt May reminds him, great power can also mean great loneliness. And you can forget that people love you. Forget to let them love you. The answer to is he Spider-Man or is he Peter Parker is that he's both. That it was never a real choice. That one cannot exist without the other, not properly. And it takes seeing himself reflected in a young girl who is hurt and hurting people, who is special just like he is and angry just like he was, for Peter to realise the truth, for him to remember something that his Aunt May once said to him. Remember that people love you, even when it feels like you're totally alone. That's your deepest responsibility. And then he gets shot, helping one person, and he gets to see all the love that people have for him. The love of his friends, but the love of the city too, and all the people that he's helped. And when he finally takes action, in the final moments of the film, to reconnect with the world, we hear the notes being added back, the original score. Peter Parker isn't missing anything anymore. Thanks for listening to my thoughts on Spider-Man Brand New Day. The amazing photography you're seeing over these credits are by Aaron McComb, who was lucky enough to see the film being made in Scotland. That big list of names are my patrons, who I'm eternally grateful for, and you can be listed in the credits too, and get early access to videos by supporting this channel on Patreon. This was supposed to be a quick and timely video on the new Spider-Man film, but it turned out as I was writing it that I had a lot to say beyond, oh my god, I love this. Let me know what you thought in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.